All right, hello everyone. My name is Nikhil, and I'm going to be talking here today about my one of my favorite topics, which is falling in love with the problem statement. So I'm currently a senior product manager. I'm with Nike for over 8 years, and I have, I would say, great experience working in Nike for a lot of digital strategic initiatives, both, but majorly. What kept me busy at Nike is building capabilities, and that's what excites me to be more on the technical side of product management. Right. Okay. So we can start. And so, like I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topic, which is falling in love with the problem statement. Now, what I'm going to be doing is in this presentation, I'll be focusing on emphasizing that how important it is for any product manager to spend good enough time in the problem space so that they can better understand who their consumers are, what their consumer pain points are, what their needs are. And with that insight, they can build great products and be successful. Okay. All right. Now, before I go ahead, I must ensure that all the talk I'm doing is purely based on my learning, which I have obtained working as a product manager, and a lot of readings and attending a lot of conferences and webinars. So this is not something that's been endorsed or sponsored by any institute. All right. This is the agenda for today. We'll start with what is product sense and why the product sense is seem to be a very important skill set for any product manager. Then we'll discuss what is that product managers can do to better understand their consumer needs and pain point, and finally how to define a good problem statement and some more details around that. Okay. Now, before we go ahead, what I want to do is I want us to take a moment to look at some of these stats. And these stats are related to a launch of a new consumer-facing product from last year, 2019. These stats indicate a message, and we'll get to it later after I read this through quickly. Okay, so as per research conducted by Harvard Business School, every year, more than 30,000 new consumer products are launched, and out of which 95% of them fail. So if you can see that this failure percentage is significantly high. Also, as per CB Insights, which is a very reliable tech marketing intelligence platform, 42% of shutdown startup that launch a product didn't solve a valid consumer problem. What it's telling us is that majority of these startups which shut down, their product was nowhere close to solving or addressing consumer needs. 2019 study also reveals that 11% of a new product consumer remain engaged after 52 weeks. So this tells us that when those products were launched, they were in the market, there was some good adoption, there was engagement, but gradually that engagement declined over 89% in 52 weeks. It's a huge decline and definitely a very concerning for any company. A couple of more. Market Research Association, as per their research, 40% of a developed product make it to the market, and out of which only 60% generate any kind of revenue. And research by University of Toronto, the failure rate for the new product launch in a grocery sector is between 70 to 80%. Again, a huge number, huge failure rate there. Okay, very interesting stats. The reason I wanted to bring it in front of us is to basically acknowledge the fact that there is a problem when it comes to building and launching a brand new product. There is definitely a problem, and there are multiple studies conducted to understand what could be some of potential reason for these failures. And we can see these products fail because of a bad design. Bad design basically leads to produce a consumer friction or bad consumer journey. It could be wrong pricing, poor go-to-market strategy, and numerous reasons for that. But one major reason for these failures is lack of product sense. And I think it's 42%. So what is this product sense and why does it matter so much in the product development life cycle? Let's understand that. All right, so product sense is the ability to understand what makes product great and deliver great value. So let's take a step back and understand how, what do we mean by how this value is delivered. So value is delivered when the product is successfully able to address consumer needs and pain points. So what does it tell us? It tells us that that in order for us to address consumer needs, first we need to discover what those needs are, what those pain points are, and then validate that they're real needs and the real pain point, and then focus on solving it. So what it means is basically solving part comes later. The first most important thing is to identify the problem and validate that's the real problem. And that's what the entire presentation is focused on, falling in love with the problem statement. A very catchy title, I say. Okay, now what do I mean when I say that? It basically comes down to the same thing. It says to better understand your consumer needs and pain point. So understand this, people don't really want product. They want solution to their problem. I mean, that's what motivates them to go to the market, or that's what motivates them, encourage them to go online and look to buy something, because their end goal is to get something that solves a particular problem they're facing. So the more painful problem you can solve, the more opportunity you have for the success. Now, let's say, let's take an example. I want to go to the airport, I want to catch a flight, and I need a cab service for that, okay? Some of my pain points are, I don't know which cab service to call. I don't know how to call that cab service. I don't know what time that cab will come, how much it cost me, and most importantly, will it take me to the airport or not? These are my pain points. Some of my needs are, in relation to this, is I need to know how to call a cab, and I want that process to be very simple for me. I need to know in advance how much that cab is going to cost me, what's the ETA of the cab, and approximately what time it will take me to my destination. So these are very common needs and pain point of the user segment, which I define a user segment who wants to go from point A to point B. And Uber was successfully able to address all those, successfully able to identify those needs and address those needs, which is why Uber is a very successful company. So this is one of the quote which I really like. It goes like, people don't want to buy quarter-inch drill, they want quarter-inch hole. And it implies the same thing which I was saying, that people are looking for a product. People are not looking for a product, they're looking for something that solves their problem. So let's talk about what is that any product manager can do to better understand their consumer needs and pain points. Well, the first and most important thing is spend time in the problem space. And Albert Einstein once said, and I quote, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'll spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution. It's a true what he said, because most of these companies who fail to understand their consumer, what their consumer really need, and they eventually fail, their product fail, is because they didn't spend sufficient time in the analysis phase. And analysis phase is where the problem statement is well defined. And I think it's a human tendency that we jump into the solution without identifying or comprehending the problem. It's our nature. And unfortunately, this very tendency prevents us to identify the real problem and come up with the true delightful solution. Even if you look at Facebook, they have so many digital products if you use Facebook, and so many successful and attract a lot of traffic globally. They have 5 core values, out of which one is focus on impact, which means to have the biggest impact, we need to focus on finding and solving the most important problem. This is why it is very important for product manager to spend good enough time in the problem space so that they can come near to their consumer needs and pain point. Now, what is product managers are expected to do in that time? I mean, what activities, we know that they have to spend the time, but what are they expected to, what activities they should perform? And the answer is conducting user research. The user research is the most critical part of the product development lifecycle. It enables you to produce a reliable insight that can guide you in your product related decision. It's a very powerful process. If properly conducted, it can transform the company into a learning-based organization that use fact-based decision making to achieve strategic objective. As a product manager, you will conduct user research to uncover who your customers are, what problem they are facing, how you think your product can bring value to them, and even in scenarios where you're trying to validate any hypothesis or assumptions. There are many different ways to conduct the user research, and the most famous one is qualitative and quantitative research. Let me talk about it in a very high level. So quantitative research is conducted to gather data through surveys or application metrics such as Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics. They're available. You can buy those, and these are those services which you can hook up on your digital product, and they produce good metrics, and you can get a lot of great insights on that. And also via A/B testing. So it's a research. This research is conducted in a scenario when you're trying to validate or invalidate any hypothesis. Like I have one of the hypotheses here. Let's say, for example, a marketer is always so. What I was saying was less marketing objective is marketer objective is like a lot of people to open their email and stuff like that, and they have this assumption that by adding consumer first name in the subject line may increase the open rate by 40%, and they can simply validate it by doing the A/B testing. That can answer that question. Whereas the qualitative research, the data is gathered through interviewing your customer directly, meeting with them, talking with them face to face or phone, or maybe conducting a focus group. And this research is more open-ended because this is where you're looking to understand your user behavior, how they interact with your product, how the consumer, their purchase journey starts, and how, or maybe you're trying to detect any kind of an unexpected behavior pattern. So another thing I would like to say that most likely there will be some kind of a data that already available in your organization that you can leverage to extract insight. That's called secondary data, secondary research. At some time, some product manager, it was a primary research, and they gathered that data and just sitting. In your organization, you can work with the product managers, or if you have the data scientist, you can work with them to get access to those data, and they can sometimes help you to answer some of the questions as well. But the important point here is that a good product manager build a well-rounded product roadmap by relying on the combination of these customer feedback and data that is gathered via these research. The user research topic is very broad, and I don't think I will be covering it end to end. I will only limit the scope to qualitative research where data is gathered through interviewing your customer. However, in the end, I have some references. If you guys want to know the user research end to end, and you can go through those references, and they have some good details around that. So I'll come back to qualitative research where data is gathered through interviewing your customers. So Henry Ford once said, and I quote, that if I have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Now think about it. Is that what really people wanted? Was that the real people problem? No, their real problem was they wanted to go from point A to point B faster. So what I mean here is that your customer knows what they want, but they may not be able to articulate it to you accurately all the time. This is why it is very important for product managers to be very well prepared when you're interacting with your customer and ask good open-ended questions. A good open-ended question can produce great insight, and they can uncover a lot of the real things. Now, before you interact with your customer, you should determine what is your research objective. I mean, are you trying to better understand a particular problem your consumer is facing? Are you trying to make any product decision? Are you trying to see why the churn rate of your particular product is increasing? It could be a number of reasons, but based on your objective, you will come up with good open-ended question. And then also you should also identify and recruit your target customer group. This could be a focus on a particular market segment or a user segment group who demonstrate a particular behavior or perhaps match a demographic. Example, TikTok. I mean, your target audience there is not going to be people over 65. It's going to be like a younger generation. All right. And then after you conduct your interview, you're back in the office, you have all the time now to conduct the analysis on that data that you have gathered and extract the insight based on which you will make a product decision. Now remember, in order for you to make a valuable product decision, you need a reliable data. And you only get reliable data, you can only be able to extract a good insight from the reliable data by asking good questions while you're interacting with your customers. So what is good questions and what makes a question good? Let's look at that. So good question creates a good dialogue. I mean, it allows interviewer to better understand what's going on. In nature, good questions are open-ended because it encourages the interviewee to respond with more context than simply yes or no. It also uncovers the customer need and pinpoint. Like I have already mentioned that the quality solution or the product is tailored to the needs of a customer. And good question challenge the assumptions. We all have assumptions. We all operate with certain assumptions. As a product manager, you will always be, you will have that intuition or a gut about that product, and it's natural. But this is why you're meeting with your customer, because with that you will be able to validate or reject those assumptions. Also, the good question provide rich qualitative data that enables you to gather viewpoint, feeling, opinion from your customer about the product or the idea or a solution that you have. All right, let's take a look at some of the good open-ended questions that can really help uncover some real problems. Well, the first one is why, and this is by far the most important question you can ask. And every time when you ask why, you're one step closer to the heart of the issue. Another one, in case you're trying to discover any customer frustration or a need, you can ask something like, what are some of the challenges you encounter when you see a particular product in our app? So this is where you put customer in a position where he will run through their journey and talk about the pain point, and you can gain some insight on that. Another one, what do you like about how you use our app to find a friend? Again, this is where your customer is defining their journey, and then you can follow up with nice whys, and it will reveal what is that they like and what is that they dislike, and more details around that. So in case when you're comparing some of the options, you can ask, is there a piece of one version you prefer over others? This will again put them in a spot. They'll say, yes, I like a feature A, and then you can ask why, and it will tell you more details, like why that feature is more popular than the others. A good product fit question, something like, how would you improve this product to better fit your needs? And then how to solve this? How do you solve this today? This is again a very open-ended question, and this can reveal great ideas also from the customer. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the power of why by applying it to the Henry Ford most famous quote, which I in a few slides back I displayed you, and see how near it brings us to the real problem. So I'll repeat the quote. It says, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Now, why do you need a new horse? Because it's old. Why do you need to replace it when it gets old? Because it's slow. Why do you need it to run fast? Because I need to go from point A to point B faster. It's a perfect example of a why, like I mentioned. It took just 3 attempts of why to bring you closer to uncover the real problem. And now Henry Ford knows that he doesn't have to produce a faster horse. He needs to produce a car. And now, let's say that we spend good enough time, you as a product manager, you spend good enough time in the problem space. You successfully conducted the user research. You interviewed your customer. You got a lot of feedback back, and you did your analysis and extracted the great insight. Now you're in a position that you understand what the problem your consumer are facing and what are their needs. Now is a time for you to express all that in the problem statement, right? So before we understand how we do that, let's understand what is the purpose of a problem statement. The main purpose of the problem statement is to explain the identified problem. It recognizes the gap between the current state, which is the problem, and the future state, and that's the goal. Here are some of the good attributes of the problem statement. A good problem statement is user-centric because it focuses on user and their needs. Remember, like I mentioned, all the time and effort that you spend in understanding those customer pain points, you're going to now express all that in this problem statement. A good problem statement focuses on a problem, not a solution. It does not define the solution or any method of reaching the solution. It simply focuses on problem. Remember, you're still in the problem space. You're not solving anything. A good problem statement is inspiring, and I bet once you have the problem statement, you will be communicating that problem statement within your organization to executives or the leadership or your manager or peers. And when they read it, it should inspire them. And inspire them and make them believe that this is a real problem that needs attention. Good problem statement is framed in a way that seems actionable. Anyone who reads it, designer, engineers, when they read it, they know what to do next. It should be concise, very easy to understand, and most importantly, problem statement takes time. It's not something that you can, or I would say you should come up with in a day or two. You should take your good time with the problem statement. It could, in average, take a week or a week and a half or something like that. And I would advise, like, if you're drafting your problem statement and you need to know if it's well defined or not, ask for the feedback from your peer, people who were not part of the user research, and ask them to read it and then tell you what is that they interpretate out of it. And if they are close enough, then you know that you're getting there. We're going to look at some of the good and not so good examples of the problem statements. Okay, so this one is from the Facebook news feed. It goes like, I don't have an easy way to see what all my friends are doing without going to each of their profiles separately, which is inefficient. So perfect example of a user-centric problem statement, and very concise. The statement clearly expressed the user pain point and seems actionable. The another one, new parents need a way to feel connected to the support group because they spend large amount of time alone with their babies and end up feeling isolated and lonely. This problem statement clearly defines the user segment, which is the new parents, their pain point, which is feeling of being lonely, and their need, which is to stay connected with the support group. Anyone who reads it should inspire them and they know what they're looking to solve. Here's an example of not so good crafted problem statement. Customer wants to be able to pay their bill using the smartphone. This problem statement is clearly missing expressing the consumer pain point. I think it's giving a hint of a feature. Now remember, if you put your product or a service or a hint of a solution in the problem statement, then your problem statement is not well defined. And unfortunately, you'll find yourself far away solving the real problem, or you may end up solving a wrong problem, which may not be the priority at that given time. All right, so what we're going to do now is we'll take some time and do a group exercise kind of a thing. So how I have this structured for you is I have some feedbacks here, the real-time feedbacks, and some insight generated from those feedback. So basically the user research has been conducted. So we will pay attention to those feedback, which is aka known as voice of customers, and we will look at those feedbacks, and which is related to the current return and refund process for any company. Let's think about it like XYZ Incorporation. They have some issues related to return and refund, and customer have a lot of feedback. So product manager gathered those feedback, did the analysis, and conducted the insight. We're going to look at all of those, and we will use that information to come up with the initial draft of the problem statement. And I'm going to read through those feedback and insight. So some sample of it, like, I never received my order and was told I would be refunded, and have had nothing but problems when I call. Every time I call the customer service, they tell me different things. This is really frustrating. I'm still waiting for my credit, for a credit from my order that I returned it to UPS. I returned an item long time ago and still didn't get any of my money back. So you see that people who return are expecting the refund back, and seems like they're not getting that refund on time, or there is no observability or visibility over it. And this all feedback is around that. Some of the insight generated out of it is like, returns are the #1 friction for which our customers contact us. Over 15% of a call to customer service in North America is related to refunds. 34% of a call to customer service in Europe are related to refund status, out of which 25% time the CS agent is not able to provide any update, which leads to the repeat calls from the same customer. 25% of Asia Pacific consumer contact us 3 times or more to get update on their refund status. Customer expect to be refunded faster, as they are also contacting the customer service several times for the status updated on their returns. So it's a very simple exercise. This is the very simple insight from those feedback that we got, and we'll use both of these slides, these information, to draft initial draft of a problem statement. And this is a hint here I have for you guys. So refer to the customer feedback to extract who the users are, And there is a user segment there. Identify what that user segment is, what are their current pain points, and insight extracted from the feedback to come up with your initial draft. I definitely need a help here to yeah.
So Nikhil, so I did submit on the Zoom chat the link to the slides for the exercise, so everyone can open them up on their local computer and just be able to kind of review them on the page as you prepare for the exercise in the groups that we will. I believe Cyrus will be setting everyone up in breakout rooms to work together for about 10 to 15 minutes.
Sure. All right, guys, I'm going to assign you to the same rooms. Here you go.
Right.
All right, so I think the three key takeaways from this talk today, and as a product manager or as a human, I would say to ditch the solution mindset and spend time in the problem space, and so that you can better understand what's going on and comprehend what the problem is. Also, the second one is uncover the real problem. Focus on the focus on listening to the voice of customer. I mean, that's when people say like, hey, let's build something or let's solve the problem. Okay, what are we going to solve? I mean, ask customer what they want us to solve for them. Ask customer what they want us to do for them. So in order for you to uncover the real problem, most important thing is to listen to the voice of customer. And then finally, define a good problem statement, because it will guide you and your team and provide a focus on a specific need that you have uncovered. These are some of the some readings. Further readings I would like to recommend, and I did mention about the user research. It's a trust me, if you master on the user research, I mean, if you're an aspiring product manager or you're currently a product manager, or you want to transition to a product management, this is a key skill set people look at, user research. And so go through this book, which is Observing the User Experience by Mike Kiniski. I hope I spelled his pronounced his last name accurately, but it's a good resource. In this book, Mike has elaborated on a variety of different user research techniques. I think he covered around 13 user service techniques, and with the real-time examples, so it can help you. Also, the Lean Startup by Eric Ries. This book elaborates on how today entrepreneurs use continuous innovation to create radically successful business. That most startups within North America, around the globe, basically use the method which is in this book, and one of which is MVP. If you have heard about it, the minimum viable product. It's all about how you can, with the limited level of effort, what is that in the fastest time you can put in market in front of a consumer, so that you can learn. There's a concept of fail fast. So that this book covers all that. It also have Decode and Conquer if you're looking to get into the product management and how to basically crack the interview. It's a good book by Louis Lynn, and he has some very good frameworks in this book that will definitely help you to tackle design related technical estimation or a behavioral type of questions. And then finally, the Inspired, which is How to Create Tech Product Customer Love by Marty Kagan. It's a good book, and she focused on the product that has been built and launched by most successful tech companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, Design. How they design, develop, and deploy all these products and have got a lot of success around the globe. Yeah, so that's all from my side, and feel free to